But for the issue of district attorney, as somebody, I think people recognize that there's generally a paramilitary racial policing that happens in our city. And stop and frisk is part of that, but there's so many other aspects to that other than stop and frisk. We've kind of looked at stop and frisk as a shorthand for a paramilitary racial approach to policing in New York. And my question for all of you is this. If you disagree with that statement, why not? Why is it not the case? And if you do agree with it, what do you think the district attorney can do about it, understanding that you're not the police commissioner?
Very angry.
You start with Mr. George. Sir, thank you.
You'd be rude
Start
too.
with Sir.
You
can address it to the audience.
Yeah.
Mr. George.
Closing statements are coming next.
Yes, okay.
Go ahead.
So, look, I don't know if I'd go as far to say that it's all paramilitary. There are problems with the police department. Just like any other community, there are a few bad apples in every lot. And we've got to have a DA that's willing to stand up and say when police action is wrong. He hasn't done it with stop and frisk. And then he goes around, he has this clinic where he expunges warrants of people that claim to have warrants out there, and he says he's doing you a favor. But shouldn't we ask the question, why do we have all these warrants in Brooklyn? How has it gotten to a level of this excessive ticketing to the points where people have warrants out there? I mean, we need a DA that's critically going to go and analyze police policy. Yes, we aren't the police commissioner, but we can say when we believe police action is wrong. And we haven't had a DA that's willing to do that. So what I'll say to you is that I will look at disparate policies that are happening with the police department. And I won't be afraid to question and say when police action is wrong. Let me give you the perfect example of that. What the difference is in Brooklyn versus somewhere else. If there's a police shooting here in Brooklyn, it's not automatically given to the grand jury. The DA makes his own assessment of the case first, and only if he feels that the cop is guilty of doing some sort of act does he put the case in the grand jury. Look, the people should decide that. Present all the evidence to the grand jury when you have a fatal shooting committed by a police officer. Let the public decide that. If we're afraid that the public's going to act irrationally, a judge reviews the grand jury minutes. That's just one step, but we need real ideas of how we're going to stop those problems.
Thank you, Mr. George. Mr. Johnson.
Let me just say this, in terms of the police, in terms of discrimination, I have literally spent my life as an attorney fighting against discrimination, all types of discrimination, whether it's racial discrimination, discrimination based on age, disability, sexual orientation, it doesn't matter. I have championed the fight against all types of discrimination. I'll do that as Brooklyn DA. With respect to the police, I will support the police when the police should be supported. That's the role of the DA. That's what's right. Because we can say whatever we want about, oh, you know, the police are this, the police are that, but at the bottom line is we do know that the police put their lives on the line every day to protect everyone in this room. And we know that Officer Peter Fagorski was killed. And so was James Nimmerin, and so was Rodney Andrews trying to get guns off the streets of New York. So I support the police, but when the police do wrong, I will hold them accountable, like I did in the Amalima trial. That case wasn't easy. That case was very difficult. Police officers didn't want us to get that conviction, but I stood there, I put the work in, and I did that opening statement, and I got the conviction of police officer Justin Volpe. So I will be very strong on discrimination, to ferret it out, to make sure it doesn't happen, but I would also support the police when they need to be supported. It's that simple.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Hynes.
By the way, the Abner Louimi case was our case. We indicted those brutal cops in that case. And then I discovered that the maximum jail sentence was 12.5 to 15 years. And that would have been an outrage. And so I called my friend, the United States Attorney, Zach Carter, and his office took over the case. They did a superb job. Look, I was a special state prosecutor for the investigation of the criminal justice system. And since I've been DA, with those two positions, I stand second to none in the active prosecution and jailing of corrupt cops and brutal cops. But most cops do a job, and I defend them for doing that job. And to call them paramilitarists, I think is awfully insulting.
Thank you, Mr. Hynes. Closing statements.